all night. What is up, y'all? Happy Friday. What's up, Hi John Compy, Lieutenant Junior, Apple Light? Hope you guys are doing fantastic. Ashish Naware, how's it going? Welcome. Persican, hello. Hello, everybody. It's a good day. The weather here in New York City has gotten to a critical goodness. This is the time of year that we're always looking forward to, you know, that few precious weeks, maybe a couple months where it's like fall time, you know? It's not too hot, it's not too cold, it's not too humid, it's not too rainy, you know, it's kind of good. So it's coming. I'm looking forward to that. And it's already not so hot, so I like that quite a bit. The heatness, the hotness, it crushes my brain, I think. Too hot, feels like I can't think. But luckily, yeah, things are pretty good right now. It's been an absolutely crazy week though, you guys. I think I talked to you a little bit about this last week. I was like, something good might be happening, you know? All motivated, all optimistic. So the something good was that I put an offer on a house. In the end, I didn't get the offer on the house. So the good thing didn't turn it out to be such a good thing. But I learned a lot. You know, it was intense. They say all sorts of corny stuff, like the New York City real estate market ain't for wimps or something like that. They're like, real estate, so crazy here in New York. But man, it's pretty crazy. I didn't quite understand until I experienced it. You got to be quick. You got to pay $1 billion. You got to have all your ducks in a row. And then somebody will still come and pay all cash for the house that you're trying to buy. Way above offer price. So that was kind of fun, you know, kind of stressful. I don't know if you guys have ever done anything like that. Surely, probably some of you have. But it really will keep you up all night thinking. So much money, worrying, what this, what that, you know. A lot of questions about. It's easy to get existential when thinking about moving, right? But anyway, so that's kind of what was going on. Yeah, apparently people just have a crap ton of money laying around. I think New York City is full of people who have money. And, you know, I make a good salary, but it's not the kind of salary that allows you to pay for an entire house in cash. Certainly not. Certainly not. Okay, let me update my project. What's up, Shambu2K? We'll get to the project. The project is going to be little JSON stuff today. We're going to mess around with some JSON. Kadobes, how are you? I hope you're doing okay. I hope everything is, you know, on the up and up and so on. Yeah. Been thinking about some of that stuff. And it sounded really tough. From the Instagrams. But I'm glad you're good. So the project we're going to do today is some JSON stuff. So let me edit that. So commands, edit, project. Adding some JSON functionality to CockroachDB. We'll say missing JSON functionality. That's what we're going to do. We're going to try. But anyway, yeah, so that's kind of what happened. You know, it was stressful. It was stressful. To be honest, felt like I couldn't concentrate on much besides that, thinking about all that money. But in the end, they said the house has gone to somebody who's paying $300K over asking, all in cash. And so I thought to myself, man, that's disappointing. But then at the same time, are those people overpaying? Do I feel so bad after all? You know, the offer we put in was not that much. It was not all in cash. So do I feel that bad? You know, it wasn't like we got beat out by a small amount. The games, you know, they're playing, asking everybody to change their bids, like so mysterious. How many bids are there? How many people are competing with you? All of this is asymmetric. It's like a poker game where you don't know anything. Nobody gives you any information, and that's kind of the point of it. So it's pretty brutal. I don't think that this is a unique experience. After I've been telling some people about this story, that everyone is like, oh yeah, it's just like this. Like I've went through this, commiserating. You know, Bay Area sounds like it's even worse. New York City is already bad. Even places that aren't New York City or Bay Area seem like they have this kind of stuff going on all the time. So you know, I've learned, I've gotten some experience on the old experience plate, and next time I'll be more prepared. So that's what's up. That is what's up. On top of that, what else has happened? I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of what's been on my mind, not gonna lie. That was sort of dominating my attention for the past week. But you guys, today I think we're gonna do a little stream about JSON stuff. It should be pretty good. There's a couple of JSON features that are missing from the database that may or may not be so easy to add. We've done a lot of the easy ones already. Some of the ones that we've missing, turns out that they're used by some other programs that we kind of want to have support for. In particular, there's this thing called Postgrest with a T at the end. You guys heard of Postgrest? The idea of Postgrest is it's a REST API that it becomes Postgres, no T, SQL queries, right? So you can use a REST API to do SQL stuff. Pretty powerful idea. Really powerful idea. And yeah, you know, it's something that we want people to be able to use. And there's a couple of JSON things that are sort of missing. So I was thinking that maybe I could try to add some of that stuff this time around. I don't think it's going to necessarily be trivial, but maybe it won't be untrivial. We'll see. That's the plan, though. What's up, M. Vargas? How is it going? Ooh to you, too, sir. So, let's get into it, right? Let's get into it. Let us get into that at the moment. Okay, so let me tell you what I've done so far. Let me show you what I've done so far. I did one thing, but I don't think it quite worked yet. So there's something in SQL called arrays, as we know. In JSON, there's also arrays, but they're different. So an array in SQL is where you say, you can say something like this, array of 1, 2, 3. Oops. And it gives you back this array thing, right? And in JSON, you can also have an array, but it's a little different. Like you can have like this. And if I cast this thing to JSON, it'll become sort of an array, but they're different. They're not, this is a JSON array and this is a SQL array. It's different. So some people want an unholy mixture of both, a SQL array that contains JSON. So that's what I sort of added support for a little bit off stream because I thought it would be straightforward. It's kind of straightforward. There's some problems with it, but it's somewhat straightforward. So I think I can now say select array. And then I think if I could put JSON in here like this, false JSON, then like maybe an object like this, turn this into JSON too. I think this will work now. Yeah, so I get this sort of crazy looking array with all sorts of janky looking escapes, but at least this kind of works. So I was excited about that, but then sort of I noticed the test case that I added. I think it's actually wrong. So let me show you the test case that I added here. M. Vargas, first of all, though, says a few things. Trying to implement Cockroach in your company. That is awesome. You're using lots of different queues as BD. Kafka, Nats, Redis, and the like, but no relational stuff. What do I think? Well, it depends on the use case. But I think that there's a lot of good use cases for relational data. It really depends on so much, though. So I think that you should use CockroachDB for you know, appropriate use cases for CockroachDB. How about that? For a diplomatic non-answer. But seriously, though, it depends. It 100% depends. And all technology choice has to be about why, right? What's the purpose? What are you trying to do? So boring answer, but it's really true. What is up, Foob? So check out this sketchy test case though. So let me show you, hold on a second. JSON, test data. Oh Lord, what is going on here? I thought it was called, oh, is it the array? Maybe it's the array? Test case. Okay, so it's the JSON test case. I don't know why I didn't find that. Let me try that again. Test data. Okay, so here's my test case that I was playing with. Let me show you what it's doing. we make a table. This song is terrible. Let me fix this. Goodbye. I want to play this one particular song. This is like such a hype pump up song. Really into this song. Okay, so here in this test case, we've got a table that's containing JSON. We do some stuff that's supposed to return an error. We insert a bunch of data into the table. We select all the data from the table to make sure it looks the way that it was when we put it in. We do some selects. Who's excited? I'm excited. Oh, never mind. I think we're good, actually. I was gonna say that this is the test case I added. We run select array ag bar from foo. Very simple. And I was like, oh my God, wait a minute. It doesn't contain all the data, but that's because we deleted all the data up here. So let me just stick it over here. We'll rewrite the test, then we should be probably good to go. Anyway, so we can just move off of this onto the actual project because I just realized that it's probably fine. This is looking better, right? Let's just validate that it makes sense, but I think it is looking significantly better. We got AB123 hello 1 true false. We got JB Pratt, thank you so much for the 9 months of tier 1 subscription. You are awesome. Welcome back. Isn't this a great song? Boss music, I agree. Let's go, Lang. Long hair gang. Are you part of a long hair gang, M. Vargas? So AB123 hello 1 true false null. This seems basically right. 1 true false null. X123 XYZ. X123 XYZ. All right. Okay, we're good. Nothing to be worried about at all, friends. It's all good. Let's just ignore that this part of the thing ever happened. Now we can get into the good stuff. The good stuff. The absolutely good stuff. So here's the PR that I submitted. This is the thing that allows the in-memory JSON arrays of JSON, SQL arrays of JSON, no big deal. Let me tell you what I actually want to work on adding though. So it's a crazy thing that we call JSON to record. JSON to record. What the heck is JSON to record about, you guys? Let me explain. Let me explain what JSON to record is all about. It is an absolutely wild thing. A wild thing. It takes 2 parameters. It takes 1 parameter. You pass it some JSON, and then you alias the thing to a table, right? So you're like, select star from JSON to record, and you say as X, ABC, or whatever. And what it does is it extracts the elements of the JSON that you pass it that correspond to the names of the aliased columns that you set, which is super bonkers, right? It's like, what the heck? It's very backwards. It's like you alias this thing, but this function has to kind of know what it's aliased at. So it like pushes these names into this so that it can figure out, okay, well, I want A, I want B, I want D. So let me look for A inside the JSON, B inside the JSON, and D inside the JSON, if that makes sense. D doesn't exist in this one, so that's why it returns null. So it's kind of wacky stuff. We can do this. We have some of the functionality that is required for something like this. This is what's called a set returning function, because it kind of returns several rows that are split up into columns like this. But what we don't have is sort of this dynamic weirdness where we change the names of change the actually like resultant column types based on this alias thing. It's like super bizarro world. So we're going to try to implement that and we'll see how it goes. Foobpoob says, is it costly to create a huge amount of databases in Cockroach? I'm currently planning a project where a user is able to import his own data with his own schema without a SQLite for user project. New database. Yeah, so definitely that is going to be possibly problematic, Foobpoob. We definitely have a limit as to the number of databases in Cockroach, like the logical databases. And it's not such a good limit really because we just sort of, it's one of those scaling factors that we haven't really spent a lot of time optimizing, to be honest. So what you'll see is over time, as you create a lot of databases or a lot of tables even, just the number of names. It's not the size of the data, it's just the number of objects. Things will start to slow down, especially with regards to like metadata queries. So doing PG catalog queries or show tables or things like that. Over time, we have some like bad scaling properties of some of those things. So I think that I wouldn't recommend doing that at the time being, to be honest. I think that this particular use case is definitely something that we've seen, and we're thinking about the ways to solve it, but we don't really know what is the best way right now, if that makes sense. You should try it though. Here's what I would recommend. You should try it out. Write a little script, make 1,000 databases or whatever, several thousand if you want, and see what happens. See what happens. Long hair since 2004. Okay, so let me show you what I've been thinking so far with this project. Table for each user project. It's really not so different. It's really just about the number of like named objects in the database. If it starts to get, I mean, like thousands, you'll be fine. Tens of thousands starts to get sketchy. Hundreds of thousands starts to get sketchy. You know, I would try it out. I would test it. That's always going to be my best recommendation for stuff like this. If you're trying to figure out whether something's going to work, write a little basic script and see what happens. Honestly, if it's just thousands, you'll probably be fine. If you're hundreds of thousands, millions, you're gonna start to run into trouble. Yeah, sun-dried hair, dude. Love that. Let's make a new branch. We'll call it JSON to record. So all that I've done so far is poke around, and I wrote a small amount of kind of boilerplate code here. Very doofy little boilerplate code that definitely will not work at all. And let me explain what this is all about. So to make a generator function in Cockroach, there's a file for them. It's called generator built-ins. And you write a little definition for every generator built-in. Now there's a little bit of some problems with this that you'll start to notice, since the main point of this thing, if you remember, is we want to make it so that there's a function. We'll say select star from JSON to record. The idea is it's something like this, right? A, B, C, D, and we want to pass this thing like an as foo of A, B. And if we run this is not going to work because we don't have a function. We want to select out the A from this JSON object and select out the B from this JSON object and ignore the C, since we don't have an alias for it on the right here. But you can't like, there's a little bit of a resolution order problem here, because normally with these generator functions, we statically know all of the columns that they're going to return. They have like a set number of columns that they return. They're always named the same. And this is very different, right? This is a dynamic number of columns that they return. And it isn't set at all. So it's a little bit troublesome. And if you go over here to where we do these definitions, what you notice is that we have this make built-in thing, and each of these things has an implementation. And what does that all do exactly? Well, if we look at one of these implementations, there are a few things that each of these implementations have. And one of them is that they've got a type, and the type is static, right? So you can kind of see like, okay, well, this JSON each thing. So JSON each, by contrast, I'll give you an example of what JSON each does. You've got JSON each. The difference is that it gives me back a static set. It's key and value. And the number of rows is dynamic, but the columns are static, right? And so it's got a key and a value column, and we define that right over here. It's this JSON each generator labels thing. These are set, key and value, and there are a set type inside of this tuple thing, and it's kind of defined up front. So that's a big kind of problem for this whole thing, that like we have these types kind of set. And so basically I wanted to look to see whether how bad it really is. Like, let's take a look at this make generator overload thing. You know, you run a function, you pass in the return type, and you see how it makes this like fixed return type business here. Truth is, like, we could conceivably make a return typer implementation that's not so fixed, right? It could be sort of somehow a function that's dynamic and it returns different stuff depending on, like, I don't know, the circumstances. And basically what I was thinking is that we could make an implementation of this return typer that gets poked at when the optimizer does this name resolution business. So the key thing that we have to remember is that in the world of JSON to record, if you don't pass in this alias, nothing will happen. Like, it won't really work, it'll return an error. And in the world of JSON each or any other normal set returning function, if you pass in this alias, the optimizer will notice, and look how it like renames the columns as the columns in our table alias. It started as key value, that's the default. But over here, you know, we kind of rename them to A and B because that's what foo of AB has. And so the question is, can we, when the optimizer does this work, can we like propagate that information all the way deeply down into the built-in implementation? There's got to be like a little instantiation of it that we poke at, right? So that's kind of what I'm thinking right now, that we're gonna be poking at some kind of state that the optimizer finds when it goes ahead and does this rename operation. And I'm not exactly sure how this is going to go. It might be impossible. We're going to find out, though. So I did find out ahead of time where that manipulation happens in the optimizer, I think. And I think it's in something called select.go in opt builder. And I think it's this function called rename source. So rename source is the thing that applies an as clause to the columns in scope. Okay, so, right, that seems to be what we have here. We have an as foo of AB. Oh, we've got a scope. And what I was kind of hoping that we could do here is if we see this as.alias and we can detect that our scope is containing one of these special functions, then we could inject the columns into the into the scope's like state or something like that. So that's what I kind of want to do. And I think we already do a little bit of playing around like that here, because I think this particular case here, this scope.singleSRF column, is actually the same case that we're having. It's like a slightly more general case of this thing that we're looking at, because I think a quote unquote single SRF column is true when we are in this situation. Maybe it's actually, it's possible that it's what the situation is when SRF single SRF column is true is actually this situation, which is a little bit different, where I say select JSON each of blah. Like, this is a set returning function, and we're treating it as a single column, and we do some like weird stuff, as you could see. There's some like very janky looking stuff that comes out over here, but I think the reason for that is that if you ask for a set returning function to give you back information without the select star from, it gives you back these tuples, which is like a little bit of a different behavior. So anyway, but as you can see, look, we do have like some state that we're sort of passing around. We have these SRFs that have been replaced or something like that. And like, I think that there's like possibly some latitude that we have to like store a little bit of state and kind of do things. So why don't we actually, I think what we're going to start by doing is going to see where this thing is set. Single SRF column equals true. And we can maybe play around with understanding more about what happens here. So this is happening in something called build zip. I guess build zip happens when things are returning sets, maybe. So I guess what we could start by doing, think I would like to understand what these expers even end up being, because I don't really know at this stage. But I think this is where we do this like function resolution stuff that should be relevant. So you know what I'll do here? Let me print out the definitions that we find in this loop, and then maybe we can like learn a little bit about what this code is actually doing. So let's just do format.println found a func exper in a zip, and we're going to print out its name. So we'll just print out func exper dot. Is there a way to print out its name, or can I just string it maybe? So let's try that. Well, let's just recompile and we can see like what that does basically for us. Actually, well, let's go. I'm gonna quickly grab my water, which I forgot to get before the stream. Very important step of streaming. Make sure that you have water. So I'll be right back.
Databank's too big. I have to narrow down the search. How are you going to do that? By guessing.
Water acquired. Water acquired. Super important. Have water, be the dry lips, dude. Yeah, you never want to be that dry lips dude. That's not good. Not good. So let's pretend that this is actually like what we're expecting though. I think what we would want to do at this point is check an attribute on the function to see if it's one of these very special functions that will only work. It will only work if we alias it. I think what it actually means, it's not just that it'll only work if we alias it. I think in Postgres world, what this means is that it's something called a record returning function, I think is the way that we call things. Let's see if that's true. I think you see this says, as with all functions returning record, the caller must explicitly define the structure of the record with an as clause. So I think like we probably want some way we probably want some way of notating that a function is going to return a record. And then check it, ultimately. So I think that's basically what we're going to be doing. So let's go ahead and see what that would look like in terms of our function definition types here. So if we look at func exper, what do we get? We say there's a func and there's a type. What is a func type exactly? This is something unrelated. We've got expers, filter, window def, ag type, type annotation, and overload. So I think that maybe overload is what we care about here, because overload, of course, returns something called return type, and return type is a return typer. Return typer is this thing we were looking at earlier, you know? So it almost seems like what we want to do here is see if we can make a return typer that returns a weird record type signifier. That could tell us what we need to know, possibly. Keyboard layout, raise or symbol layer, can't use a move call to the QWERTY, do. Okay, so let's take a look at my layer here. So I think that it's all about this nav guy, right? So I think basically I just have this nav layer and that's it. This stuff is all unused completely. But I think I'm just using these two layers. Plus the shift layer. But yeah, that seems about right.
Computers hooked into over 1,000 data banks throughout the world.
Yeah, I use symbols through the shifted numbers, exactly.
I have to narrow down the search. How are you going to do that? By guessing.
I think. I feel like I feel like this is maybe a little bit out of date, honestly, but yeah, I think this is like slightly out of date, honestly. I'll try to remember to update this. Is it out of date? I can't remember. Anyway, it's something very close to this. I think I might have like tweaked a tiny little thing, but I didn't make any big changes besides that. So honestly, yeah, let's see here. Let's see here. If we, I'm not actually even sure if there is already a types.t for record. I kind of don't think that there is. I know we have like a t record OID thing, but we definitely don't have any kind of other way of notating that. I suppose I could just say, hey, this function is going to return any tuple type, and then notice that, and then do stuff based off of it. But that doesn't really feel quite right either. I think what we'll want to do here is this thing going to finish compiling or what? So you run cdemo, and does this thing print anything out? Found a func expert in a zip. It does indeed say something like that. And interestingly, it does not print that when we just do select JSON each. But I don't think we really care about this. I think we do care about this case and not so much about this case. So this is sort of doing what we expect, which is nice. I think the thing that we need to do here is, right, we've got to we have to somehow have some information about, maybe it's inside of function properties actually. What if we put something inside of function properties? This seems like an appropriate place for something like this, right? Like what if we were to say something like, returns record or something? If we had this, then maybe we would be able to do something a lot more nifty. So I'll say returns record type is set to true. Or I'll just say, yeah, indicates that this function is a record returning function, which implies that it's unusable without a corresponding type alias. For example, consider the case of JSON to record. Is that what it's called? JSON to record? JSON to record of, we'll put a little example, A to B, C to D. This function returns an error unless it has an as T of A, B, C declaration. Since it is defined as a function that returns one column. It's actually hard to even phrase what this thing does. Since its definition is to pick out the JSON attributes within the input that match by name to the columns in the aliased record type. something like this. So let's try that out. And so let's go ahead and then go to our generator built-ins. What's up, P4RI? Documentation's important, man. I can't say that we have it everywhere, but we've got it in a lot of places. We've got it in a lot of places. So let's go over here. When we say gen props with labels, I think what we're gonna do is say something like gen props with record gen props, maybe. So then here we're gonna say has, what did I call it again? I called it returns record type. Returns record type true. How about that? How about that? So if this is the case, right? This is the case. We're gonna mark these things as very special things. They're gonna be record gen props. Record gen props. And we'll get to this soon. We don't have the implementation yet. But the key thing is that in the optimizer, when we notice that this is a special returning record function, we can say something like def.returns record type, right? So if def.returns record type, what do we do in this case exactly? It's quite confusing. What's up, Matt? Happy Friday to you too. Hope you're doing radical. Radically radical. Most def. That is just great. Just great. So happy. You missed my little latest life update story from the beginning of the stream, in which I tried to buy a house and got outbid by a lot of money, and it was all cash. So that was where my head was at this week. It was fun. Real estate. What a world. What a crazy world. But programming makes you feel better. Kalamazoo is rough even. This is what I've been hearing for everyone. Everyone's like, oh yeah, this is like so totally normal. Like, man, you know, in the Bay Area, I got outbid by $1 million or something. It's like, Jesus, that seems pretty brutal. What is up, Opal, by the way? So if this record type returning thing is true, then what do we exactly do is the question. What do we exactly do? .scope.calls minus start calls. But how can you know? Is it this? Scalar? I guess I don't really know how the optimizer constructs the number of output columns that it should have in this moment. Hey, Marilia, you got lucky when you got your condo? I feel like there's a lot of luck. There's a lot of luck that people need, which is, yeah, it's reasonable. There's only so many houses in the world, I guess. $23K over appraisal. What I gather based on the fact that this person overpaid, I think the winning bid was 300K over the asking price. And the sense that I get that would probably mean it's like 250K over appraisal, which to me, that seems like a lot. And they also paid for the whole thing out of pocket. So for them, I don't exactly know what their situation was like, but it seems insane. What's up, Kosaki? 300K is the cost of your house. That, I'm jealous. That sounds great. That sounds just great. So, yeah, I was bummed out for a little bit, but I don't feel so bad about it right now because just the out of control nature. I was like, what are you gonna do? It wasn't like it was a close competition. GopherCon, cool. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's coming up at some point, right? I'd like to go. $90K. You live in Poland. That is awesome. That is super awesome. So here's what I don't understand, you guys. At some point, so this kind of call makes sense. We're selecting a scalar sort of looking thing, and it gives us back a scalar looking thing. But where in the optimizer do we figure out that if you do select star from this thing, it gives you back these two columns? That's what I'm missing. I'm missing where this is happening right now. I don't really know where that happens right now. It could be here, but I don't think it's here. Is it, it's not this. Because this is just one item per outer. So there's another really weird thing in this whole world, which is if I were to say something like select star from generate series 1 through 10, comma, generate series 1 through 10. Normally in SQL, this is a cross join, and it would join everything from the left data source with everything from the right data source. So you get like a Cartesian product. But since this is like a weird special zip thing, what you actually, wait a minute, this is what we're actually getting. Okay, I see. So it's slightly different. So you do get a cross join in this case, but if you just ask for them side by side, you get this zip thing, which is weird. This is kind of an odd thing. If you do select star from these set returning functions and you put them next to each other, you get a cross join. That I didn't actually know that that's true. Is that what they do in Postgres too? If I were to say select star from generate series 1 through 10, generate series 1 through 10, what do I get? First of all, I have to alias it differently, which is not something that we do, I guess. So if I alias it differently and then run, I get Cartesian product as well. But of course, if I go like this, I think I get a zip. Of course, in this case, you can't do aliases, I guess. Man, it's so bizarre, so quirky and weird. Yeah, you get this zip behavior. Okay, not to worry. I don't even know why this matters. It's just kind of odd. So yeah, I still don't get though where we do this business of expansion. I don't get where we do this business of expansion at all. Maybe it's this. So we say calls is equal to make opt call list, and we subtract this from this. Do you think this is kind of what we're doing? What if we print this out? We'll print out found and calls, len calls. Let's wonder what we find when we print that stuff out. Maybe that'll be the answer here, and then we'll know that outscope.calls gets expanded by the number of output columns, which sounds like it would make sense, but I don't really understand why that would be the case, unless build scalar has some smart magic that notices when it's a zip function, Maybe that's what it is, honestly. Maybe if we do build scalar and it's like a special func expr, then we do some weird stuff, perhaps. Ooh, is generator. If it's a generator, then finish build generator function. Ah, okay. So the answer is that it's inside of this build scalar, which is fascinating. I think that makes sense. I think that makes sense. If we go back up here, what we see is found end calls 1, found end calls 1. But if we were to do something with the JSON each, we should see found end calls 2. And I think that's because of this finish build generator function business. So that's good. That's nicely factored, I think. And it makes it so that we can probably be, oh, but is it bad? Is it terrible though? Because I think at this moment, this is the moment at which we have to know the dynamic value. So if we were to say something like, let's write a little comment here. If we're building a generator function that returns a dynamic... Okay, I just had a really confusing thought. Which is... Oh, never mind. It's not actually that dynamic because it's like dynamic in an alias sense. It's not dynamic in the data sense, which would be probably impossible. If we varied the number of output columns based on the input data, which could come from a table, that would never work. But here we're just varying it based on an as clause. So here we can say, if we're building a generator function that returns a dynamic, that returns a record type, like JSON to record, we need to know the alias that was assigned to the generator function. Without that, we won't know the list of columns to output. So here's a question. Are we screwed at this point? Like, does this happen in the optimizer before the alias? I think the answer might be yes, which could be really terrible. So let's take a look here. Rename table, I think is the name. Or wait, is it not rename? Or it's rename data source, right? Rename data source. No? What is this thing called again? Rename source. So here's our rename source. And yes, indeed, we're kind of screwed because look at the order. Like this scope is already generated. And we're renaming the scope. So we need a way to pass this as down into build scalar in some cases, which I'm not feeling very optimistic about, to be honest. So, man, so this Haas guy, I don't know if you guys have been following the latest Twitch safety drama, but there's some kind of guy named Haas who has created like 1 gajillion Twitch accounts and just spam follows like every person on the internet, I guess including my channel. But for some reason, Twitch has a really hard time banning somebody who does really obvious stuff, like create 1,000 accounts that all look the same. So the spam persists. Pretty crazy stuff. Yeah, it's like, it's pretty sad, right? Like, how hard would it be to just ban all accounts that say Haas 00312? It's kind of a joke, huh? But hey, maybe they're busy doing other stuff. Maybe they are busy doing other stuff. It's totally possible. Okay, so let's take a look at when rename source gets called here. One is an aliased table expr, which I think is the thing that we're looking at. And another case is table ref, which I think is different. Yeah, this is some weird stuff here. So it's not this table ref, it's only this other case called aliased table expr. And now that I think about it, we could conceivably say that we're going to pass the source.as inside of build data source. So I think we're kind of fine. If we're okay with editing this function, which we're a little sad to have to do that, but maybe that's okay. I'm not sure if people typically, if there's any kind of state that we keep on this builder that we could use. That would be kind of nice. I think we could do that for sure. Seems like there's plenty of state being used. So we could conceivably say something like, well, is this going to be a problem because the whole thing's recursive? It might be a little bit problematic if we just set it, because who's going to unset it? What if we are recursively building two data sources somehow? I think it would be preferable to try to do it with state rather than threading it through these parameters, but maybe not. What if we were to just edit all of the callers here to say alias? Would that be fine? Let's pretend that we did have it inside of this build data source. What would we exactly do? We would essentially go down to where we have a rows from expr, I think. I think that's the one that counts, right? Because that's the build zip. What's inside of these scopes? Could I somehow use the scope for this information? Like, how come the scope doesn't have an alias exactly? When we do this alias table expert, we actually don't edit the scope, do we? We still have an in scope. Yeah, not exactly sure. I think what we want to do is, use a little state variable here. We'll try to keep it really simple. So we're going to say, last alias. And we're going to pass it in. We're going to make it a, what is this alias thing called? Alias. Why did I don't understand where that alias thing went? Build data source. It's a alias table expr if source.as that alias is not equal to nil. So I think it's this alias clause. I think we'll just pass an alias clause. This whole as. We'll pass a whole alias clause. So last alias, alias clause. So we're gonna say last alias is set to the, I guess we should make it a pointer too. Is set to the last alias of the last, how do I say this? Last data source alias we've come across if we are processing a data source with an alias. How about that? Simple, easy, no problem. So what we do, it shouldn't be so complicated, is we're going to go over here to alias to table expr. And we're just going to say b dot last alias is equal to source dot as. And of course, we're going to pass this in as a pointer. What's up, peak? I don't know if I said that. I don't think I did. Maybe I did, though. We're going to pass in this source.as. And then the key thing is that we're going to up here say last alias is equal to b.last alias. And then we're going to nil out b.last alias is equal to nil. Okay. So that should be good to go, maybe. And then the one thing that we're going to do with our last alias is inside of our rows from expr, we're going to be passing in our last alias. And then down here, if returns record type, here's where we can return an error. We're going to say if last alias is equal to nil, alias is equal to nil, then we can say, oh, no problem. I always tolerate distractions. We're going to return, guess we panic with it. Errors dot. So what does Postgres do here? If I say something like select JSON to record, who, or select star from, what would it return? It's going to return some kind of error like needs an alias. A column definition list is required for functions returning record. PG error dot new. Oh, this alias needs to be renamed. So last alias. We'll call it source alias, maybe? Source alias. Although, is this kind of... Is there something more complicated that I'm missing here? Because... what happens if you do... Like, how is this represented exactly? I'll have to print out some more information in my debugger, in my printf debugger that I'm working with. Wow, really quite complicated.
The data bank's too big. I have to narrow down the search. How are you going to do that? By guessing.
I think I can ignore whatever I'm thinking about here because it's going to be something different, I think. So this last this is going to be called source alias. Okay. And then I need to figure out the right PG error code for this thing. which you can do by looking in GitHub. Need to be doing everywhere code search. Well, I mean, Postgres, GitHub. Where's the Postgres GitHub repo? Here it is. Okay, so search over here for this weird error message. And we really want to know error code syntax error. Okay, great, no problem. I can make that happen. So pgerror.syntax, what is it called? PG code, maybe? Syntax. Why are you doing anything? Goodbye. Okay, so that is very good. Always be printf debugging. Hells to the yes. So if source alias is equal to nil, we're gonna panic. Otherwise, what we need to do is somehow record this alias and use it inside of our build scaler, which is weird, frankly, very weird. Frankly, extremely weird. But, oh, you know what we should actually do is make it so that build scaler pays attention to this state variable as well, because we need to thread it down a few levels, don't we? So I think what we need to do is come back up here. This last alias, it's actually going to look like something more like this or something. Like we'll just pass in b.lastalias here, and then I think what we want to do is always unset last alias by the end. So we can use a little defer for that. How about we'll say defer func b.last alias is equal to nil. Just make sure that we're, I mean, this is kind of jank. Yeah, I don't know. Actually, wait a minute. Do we even need to do this? Why don't we just set it at the end of this function call? I think the problem with that would be that at the end of this function call, we need to make sure to unset it before we recurse any further somewhere. It's a little tricky. It's definitely a little bit tricky. I think what we want to do is we want to say if b.lastalias is not equal to nil, then we reset it or something like that. B.lastalias is equal to nil. Something like this, right? So make sure we reset the source, the last alias state if it's been set. So we don't keep it past a single level of recursion, something like this. And then what we can do is inside of where we do our build scaler guy, inside of our build scaler guy, where we're building a generator expression, this is the key moment. This is the key moment. So we can say something crazy, such as, we'll make a little if statement. Well, why don't we make another, we'll do an else if. We're going to do else if b.lastalias is not equal to nil. Then what we do is we say, instead of looping through the tuple contents, what we're going to do is we're going to loop through the alias. So we're going to say for I in range b dot last alias dot calls. Actually, here's another weird question. What happens when we so it's going to work if I say as foo of bar, but what would happen if I just said as foo? A column definition list is required. Ooh, so I actually need something like this, don't I? Oh gosh. Okay, so it gets even more crazy, doesn't it? So it's not only do I need to have an alias, the alias actually has to be typed. I'm not actually even sure if we support that. Do we? Do we support that? All we have is a name list. Oh god, no. Oh no, there's parser changes that has to happen. That is truly terrible. Like watch, I don't think we can even say select star from generate series 1 through 10. G of G, this is gonna work, but we can't say G of G int. This is a syntax error. Oh Lord. Okay, it's way more complicated than I thought, you guys. But you know, that could be fine. That could be fine. And based on that, I think what we ought to do is think about what in the world, what in the world we want to do here. Because it's no longer straightforward, is it? It is no longer straightforward. If we come back over here, we definitely, this just will not work. This will not work, will it? A column definition list. A column definition list. That is wild. So let's take a look inside of our parser here. What happens when we have an as clause? When we have an as clause, alias maybe, or as colon. So I think it's this case. Table name as, table alias name, right? Relation expr. So I think it's actually maybe this case. What's a relation expr? Relation expr is just a table name. So it's not actually this case, is it? We need some kind of weird, it's a func table. It's this weird case, isn't it? It's this func table. So what is a func table? A func table is either a func expr windowless, which is a rows from. So I think this is definitely the case that we care about here, right? Func expr windowless. Func expr windowless. Gets complicated here, huh? Func expr windowless. I don't think this is right because we're not actually using a rows from expr. So scratch what I just said. I don't think that this is actually right at all. What we need to do is figure out what are the grammar rules that you can stick on the right-hand side of a from, which doesn't seem like it's so complicated, but I just don't know the answer to it off the top of my head. Guess maybe it's in a select. Complete select statement looks like this. The select grammar is extremely complicated, so hopefully I don't have to dive too deeply into it. Select no parens. We've got a select, simple select. It's probably this guy, huh?
Databases don't scale because they use joins,
msol.
and write to disk.
What's up? Thanks for the sub. Thank you so much for the sub, friend. Did you change your name? Or are you a new msal? I feel like maybe you changed your name, huh? No, you didn't change your name. You didn't change your name. You're the old msal. Okay. You did change your name. Well, anyway, thanks for the sub. How's it going? Welcome to the club. Welcome to the club. Simple select clause. Let's take a look at our from clause. What's inside of our from clause? We've got a from list. We got a from list. Inside of a from list, we got a table ref. Got a table ref. Inside of a table ref, we either got a numeric table ref, which we don't care much about. We've got a relation expr. I think it's this relation expr then. That's got to be what it is that we're looking at, right? A relation expr is either a table name. See, maybe that's not right because we don't actually have a table name, friends. We don't. We have a function. We absolutely have a function. Relation expr, a select with parens, a joined table, or a func table. It really seems like it would be a func table here, but it isn't, which is extremely confusing to me. Unless it somehow is. I just like don't quite understand because if we were really using this rows from expr, we would get this rows from business all over the place, and I don't think that we do. But what if we actually somehow do? What if we do? Parse test. Test parser. Critique. Firewall troubleshooting? That does sound like fun. Does sound like quite a bit of fun, frankly. So where's our parser test? I can't remember where that thing lives. Maybe it lives somewhere in here. Test data. Okay. What's the deal, huh? Okay, let's see if we can make a weird, like a little parser test for this and see what we get. So we're gonna say test data parser like select or something? Select clauses maybe? So we're gonna say parse. We're gonna say select star from generate series 1 through 10. See what happens. Make test package equals package SQL parser test equals test parse. Is it possible for someone who doesn't know much about databases to contribute to the project? Yes, 100%. There's a lot of things that you can do to contribute. If you go to look at the good first issue. Okay, so it is the rows from thing. Okay, that's good to know. If you go to good first issue in Cockroach, you should be able to find some stuff that might be good for a beginner. Hopefully. I'm not sure if we've added new things to that list in a little while, but it's definitely got some approachable things. And a lot of people who haven't had too much database experience have contributed to Cockroach successfully. Also that, yeah, there's all sorts of stuff. Gotta ban this Haas guy, dude. This Haas guy is out of control. This Haas guy is absolutely out of control. Okay, so we do have a rows from thing. So if we go back to our parser then, we know that we're in the func table world. And yeah, sometimes I do do that. Sometimes I do switch between Vim and IntelliJ. It's absolutely true. So I think what this means is that we could conceivably... So what happens in Postgres if you say select star from T as B of A or whatever? Let's say select star from, we have this test table, B of A. This is obviously gonna work, but what happens if we put a type into this alias clause? Does it just like break? A int? Does this just, what happens here exactly? Syntax error. Okay, so it's like a different production rule. It's like, this only happens in the rows from section, which is really quite bizarre. So if I say generate series 1 through 10 as BA int, this probably won't work either, huh? Well, obviously that's not gonna work because I misspelled it. A column definition list is only allowed for functions returning record. Holy crap. Okay, so this opt alias clause, we need to have an extension, you guys. We need to have an extension 100%. And I think what we need to do here is make an opt. Like a column def thing. Man, this is a tricky parsing problem. I didn't even realize that it would be a tricky parsing problem. Column name, type name, call qual list. Yikes, but we presumably can't actually put some of these things, right? That would be weird. Like a qualification, like what would happen in Postgres if we said, no, there's no chance that this would work, right? No shot. If I were to say BA int not null, like this would not work, right? Or would it parse? It does not parse. Okay, so there's kind of like a special weird. Oh my god, I don't even know what you call this thing. It's called they have a name for it called a column definition list. So that's cool. That's certainly cool, I guess. To me, it feels deeply disturbing, to be honest, but what are you gonna do? Sora, what is up? Call def list. So wait a minute. Is it just the case that we forgot to implement this then? Is this the right little guy for it then? I don't think so. Rows from, because we're not even looking at this rows from guy, right? We're looking at, yeah. It's the key thing is these little guys right here, these little fellas. So we need to, okay, let's see if we can remember. We need to make an opt alias clause. We need to make like an opt column definition list clause. Opt call def. Do we have this already? We already have something called an opt call def list, and that's the thing that's unimplemented. Hmm. This is a little bit weird, dare I say. A little bit weird. A little bit odd, I would say. Fix memory allocation backtraces and remove 200 megabytes of unnecessary memory allocation by changing 10 lines of code. That is the dream. I love when that happens. No, it didn't sound arrogant at all. Not at all. What I am doing is working on adding support for a weird type of set returning function called JSON to record. And JSON to record is requiring all sorts of weird new support for things in the parser. So it's a bit surprising. But there's some work to be done in the parser to allow creating a table alias that has types inside of it, basically. Table alias that has types inside of it, basically. So that's what I'm kind of trying to think about. I think what we really do want to do is implement this thing, the opt call def list. So I think what we're gonna do is this is gonna be a column table def list. Do we have such a thing already? We certainly have a column def, but what if we had several column defs? It's a table element. We have several table defs. Is that a thing or something like that? Do we ever have a list of table defs? Table LM list. And what is a table LM list? It's a tree.tabledefs. So I think what we need to have is we need to have some kind of column defs list, column table def. It's actually a lot more specific than this though. So I think we probably want to make a new type of thing, just maybe called a column def without the, do we have something called a column def just on its own? It doesn't seem like we do. Yeah, I think we want to make a new type actually in the AST called column def. And I think that this thing should live where? Feels like it should live in generated. You love the I did not expect this to be so complicated feeling? Yeah, it's okay. I would say it's okay as a feeling. Call name. You had that with your backtraces? What kind of changes did you make that got rid of all those allocations exactly? Column table def. Maybe we could put it inside of this file. Where's like the func expr thing? This func expr, where is that defined? There's a lot of different things called func expr, I guess. Ah, here it is. It's in expr.go. And where is our alias defined? Or our column or table alias? Table alias? Why can't I remember the name of this darn thing? Last alias is an alias clause. Where does this thing live? This is in select.go. Yeah, we could stick it in here maybe. Alias. Okay, so we'll make something called type column def struct. And a column def will be a name, alias name, name, column table def as what? Table column def? It's got a name and a type. And a type. Resolvable function. What's up, singular user? Allocations were easy. Arena allocation. That is a classic trick. That is very cool. Column def represents a... yeah, I bet that would be hard. That's where profilers come in handy, I guess. Represents a column definition in the context of a record type alias, like in select star from JSON to record as foo a int b int. What's up, white knife? The profile used backtraces which were borked. And then we got to implement our format thing, right? Node formatter. A BitTorrent client? That's cool. BitTorrent clients are actually pretty complicated. It's not a Bluetooth keyboard, it's just USB. You have to teach yourself about position. What does that pi stand for again? It's some debugger thing, right? A terrible torrent tracker. It did work. I actually contributed something very small to BitTorrent, like the C++ thing way back in the day. I don't know why. I think it was like, I really didn't know what I was doing. It was like broken on my machine. And I did something to do with it. I forget. They have some kind of sparse bitmap thing inside of the BitTorrent client that I think I maybe edited. Position independent executables. That's right. Yo, Mr. Wormhole. Oh yeah, I meant to thank you. You posted something very cool that I actually haven't had a chance to look at yet. But I want to take a look at it. You wrote that series, right? Exactly. I'm going to advertise that. I meant to follow up on that and I haven't yet, but that's awesome. Everybody should check out Mr. Wormhole's project here on dev.to. It seems really neat. I haven't actually read it yet, but it seems awesome. But Dominic, Matt was just saying that you were working on a BitTorrent client. That's why you were summoned. That's why you were summoned. So to format our column def, we're going to say ctx dot format node. Yeah, that IRC stuff is crazy, dude. Super crazy. So this might be nil is the other thing. So I guess I should make it a pointer. So to format one of these things, we're going to say c.name. And then we're going to say if c.type is not equal to nil, context.format node c.type, I guess. Is that right or not so much? Seems like these resolvable type references can't be directly formatted. Is that doesn't sound right either though. If we go to our column table def, how do we format this thing? Node.column type string. Okay, sure. So we'll just basically go like this. So that's c.type.column type string. But it's private? What's the deal with that exactly? What am I missing here? Oh. Node.type.SQL string. Okay, maybe I can just do it that way then. SQL string. Why is this a thing? Okay, so this is a resolvable type reference, and over here what we have is a resolvable type reference. So boo boo doo doo doo. Same package? What am I missing? This seems like a silly thing to be stuck on. Surely this won't help, right? It does help? Okay, that's super weird. Definitely don't understand that. But that's okay. I'm just gonna ignore it. That is super weird though. I definitely don't understand. Oh, is it because it's an interface, I guess? So since this is an interface, I actually don't even need this to be a pointer. Okay. So that's going to help things. That is going to help matters. I was confused. Okay, great. So we have our column def, and then the next stage is, I suppose, that we need to have our column def list, right? Do we need a list of these? A name list? I think we probably do. So we'll make a type column def list is a column def. And then we'll make a function, a format function for it as well. So we'll say for I in range C, ctx.format, C of I. Then how do we do the comma-ing over here? It's like this. Okay. So we've got our column def list. So we'll say column def list represents a list of column defs. Okay. So very good. Then the next step is that we're going to have to make a new kind of alias clause, which is different. And the new kind of alias clause is going to be right because the whole point is that we tried to do this, and this is not even going to parse. So the thing is that we've got to make sure that we have another kind of thing here called a func. It's really a type. What should we call this? What should we call this exactly? So this is a column def list. It's like a record alias def or something, like an SRF alias clause. We'll just call it that. We'll call it an SRF alias clause. So it's really just a function alias clause. How about that? It's exactly the same as alias clause, except instead of having just a name list, it actually has a column def list. Okay. So a function alias clause represents an alias optionally with a column list, optionally with a column def list, as name, call one, call two, or as name, call one, int, call two, string. Okay. Note that the last form is only valid. It's really okay. So it's not just an alias. Represents a function alias optionally with a. It's really a function alias for set returning functions, optionally with a column def list. Note that the last form is only valid in the context of record returning functions, which also require the last form to define their output types. Okay. How about that as a crazy concept? Thanks for the congrats, P4. So let's make a formatter for this node formatter, and it's basically going to be the same as alias clause.
Data bank's too big. I have to narrow down the search.
Do people use global modifiable maps? I think those can be pretty dangerous because of concurrency. You definitely don't want to use globals too often. Yeah, const maps. I see what you mean. Yeah, that would be nice. That would definitely be nice. I guess we should make these pointer receivers because that's what everybody else seems to do. Okay, so we've got our function alias clause. We print out our alias, format as alias, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So this is very good. We've got our new stuff, and I guess the next stage is going to be to edit our parser to deal with this stuff properly as well. And this is going to be called the opt func alias clause, and this is going to be the func alias clause, and this is going to be a func alias clause. So instead of having a column list, this is going to be our opt column def list, or whatever it was called, call def list. And this is also going to be not a name list, but a column def list. Right? And our column def list Okay, so then to make the grammar for our opt call def list, we've got to, yeah, so this is confusing though. It isn't, I think what we want to put here is an opt func alias clause actually. Okay, we'll come back to that. So in our opt call def in our opt call def list, what we have is instead of this, we need to do one of these list forms. I don't think this should be opt, right? Or I guess it can be. I guess it's going to be either empty or it's going to be a I'm confused. I'm confused. This whole outer thing is optional, but then the inner thing also has an optional component to it as well. So it feels a little bit confusing. This opt call def list is either right. It's going to look sort of like this, I think. So in this case, it's going to be $.val is equal to tree.call def list, like this, maybe. And then in the case of non-optional, I think we need to do is put just the definition like call def list like this, and then have the result be, I guess this can also be nil. And then the result is $1, I guess. And then we can delete this stuff. Something like this, maybe. Then when we do our all def list, which by the way, we're going to need to define over here. So all def list. it'll look like call def, except not a column def. It's actually, ugh, this is so gross. We should have named this thing to be column table def. Well, I suppose we could still do it. So let's just rename this thing to be column table def. 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 And then call this column table def. Then this is going to be something else called call def. So a call def is going to be a call def like this. It's going to look like either it's going to be the same as our alias clause's nameless. So a nameless is basically a nameless and a name. It's just going to be either a name, in which case we're going to be looking at saying $.val is equal to tree.column def, I guess. Is this what it's called? Column def. Yeah, we called it a column def. So it's either going to be a tree.column def of name is equal to $.1 or dollar, whatever this thing is called, $1. Or in the case of name, and then here's the new thing, is there's a resolvable type reference or whatever, which I forget the name of that thing in the grammar, but let's find out. Column table def is column name, type name, a type name. This is the thing that we care about here. So it's just going to be a type name, and a type name is whatever. Okay, so we'll just put a type name and type name. And in this case, it's going to be $.val is equal to tree.column def name this, type this. And then that's all there is to it, I think. That is wildness, absolute craziness. So this is not going to be window. This is just going to be $.val is equal to tree.call def list 1, and then $.val is equal to do call table def Okay, so we have this thing, one.calldef, one dot three dot call def, and this is going to be a call def, and this is going to be a call def list, and this whole thing is itself a column def list. Call def list. Okay. All right, well, let's see how this works. Let's go ahead and build this thing and see if the parser builds. Okay, it definitely does not. Must specify type for call def. That makes sense. So here we've got to say column def. Call def. Like this. Okay, so we have shift reduce conflicts and stringer placeholder was never reduced. What? That seems truly terrible. So let's try to debug this horrendous mess, which is always a good time. Package SQL parser, gen, conflict. Wait. Okay, so there's one shift reduce conflict, and it's state 4151, which can either be opt call def list or call def list. Okay, so it's something to do with the fact that we either could have. Okay, and shift 43. This is our call def list, and this one is our show C setting statement. That doesn't sound right. So do we not have any kind of opt list thing? No, it seems like we do. Oh, is it because we're missing parentheses? Do we not have parentheses? That could be an issue. Yeah, we definitely need parentheses here. What am I crazy? An alias clause has parentheses, doesn't it? An opt column list definitely is going to have parentheses. Okay, so that was my issue. Opt call def list absolutely has to have parentheses. 1,000,000%. Okay, then everything explodes for some other reasons. So call def list doesn't exist. That makes sense because I called it column def list. Cannot use call def as column def in slice literal. I guess I have to cast this thing, right? You gotta say tree.name. Not use column def list as tree.nameless and field value. Okay, so that's definitely true. We need to make sure that our column def list is used by our function alias clause, which it is actually. So, what's that about? Alias clause. Did I not edit it to be a func alias clause? Yeah, I sure didn't. Okay, so this has to be a func alias clause. Func alias clause, func alias clause, or is it, I call it function alias clause. Okay. So we've made some improvements, but we're still getting some problems. Let's take a look at the actual output here. So we want to look at line 177. So what's wrong with this? This doesn't look so bad. Not sure what's broken about that exactly. SQL sim type has no fielder method tree. Yeah, I definitely don't understand that. Maybe it has to do with this first thing. So it cannot use SQL $1 union.calldef as column def in slice literal or append. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. I think I've done something weird with the types. So let's take a look at how this name stuff works. Name list. Maybe there's just no need to have slice of pointer. Should we just do it like this? Maybe that's a simpler thing to do. Oh wait, shoot. I didn't want to edit that. What I wanted to edit was this one. Still have a func alias clause. That is true, but I don't think that that was causing the main issue here. Definitely I'm confused by something here. So 9975. What is this saying? SQL sim type has no field or method tree. Why? I don't understand where that's coming from at all. Oh, is it? What's up, Mateus? Definitely don't understand why this is failing. um, oh wait, okay, so it's saying SQL sim type has no field or method tree. So is it somehow... is it somehow related to this stuff? What happens if I just get rid of this? I know this won't work, but considering I'm just deeply confused. Single page apps? Isn't that what SPA is? Cannot use SQL Sim Union. Okay, so it doesn't have to do with that. It doesn't have to do with that. It's got to be... it's got to be this stuff. What if we get rid of this? Does this change anything? Doesn't seem to change anything. But it was the same line, huh? So whatever. JSON subscription. Oh yeah. This is really cool. This is really neat stuff for sure. Just like much better, easier to use way of indexing into JSON stuff. That is really awesome. Good on them to make that. We'll probably copy it at some point. So, what? I don't understand. JSONB is so good, not sure why anyone would use Mongo. Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. Oh, is it this? Oh my god, dude. Whoever said I still have a func alias somewhere was right. No, but it's the same problem, isn't it? Okay, so don't be so quick to judge function alias. Oh, but this is wrong. This needs to be this. 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 I'm like blindly flailing because I don't understand what these error messages are telling me, really. Mern stack. Isn't it mean? Isn't it mean stack? What is MERN? Okay, I guess we're gonna have to dig into the Express React node. Oh right. I forgot about Angular. So did most people. Yeah, exactly. So did most people. Okay, so we're gonna just need to figure out what in the world the makefile does when it makes this parser stuff, because I just don't even remember. SQL gen.y, right? So if I were to say this, what do I get? Okay, so that says up to date. And what if I make this? Does this say up to date too? This says up to date too. So then what's the next step after this temp stuff? What's next after this temp stuff? Is it this thing? That's also up to date. So then, what exactly is the problem? I'm confused now. Definitely confused now. So if I remove this, then what do I get? That's also fine? So what if I remove this? Is this also going to be fine? So the problem becomes it's later somehow? What is the stage where this fails? I don't understand it. Oh, I bet I know what it is. Isn't it that this thing is actually, it's just coming from this giant generated file, right? Yes, okay, and then these lines are the things that tell it where to find the input. Okay, so actually, I think what we need to be looking for is something that says, no? SQL val.tree, and then yes, okay, so this is the issue right here. This is the issue right here, you guys. It's getting weirdly interpolated for some reason that I don't understand. Thanks for the congratulations, Ukness. Whatever is going on here is like deeply wrong, and I don't remember. I've solved this before, but I never remember exactly how to do it. So it's, whoops. It's when we're setting the function alias clause. And you know what? It probably just means that these types are not specified properly or something. But they seem to be specified just fine. They seem to be specified just fine. Oh, is it that? Is it that? You know what it probably is? No, I don't know. No, I think I know what it is. I think what it is that when we use our opt func alias clause, we've actually got to, we're not using it anywhere. Is that the issue? It's just the issue that when we actually, is it just that we have to say func table or whatever? Where were we using this func table? So is it just that we have to say over here opt func alias clause? is this, I don't think this could possibly be the issue though. Func alias clause. Oh gosh, and then alias table expert is gonna need to change as well. It's all sorts of terrible problems that we have here, honestly. But why don't we can just kind of hack it. We'll say, and I think in all reality, well, we'll just do something like this for now. I don't know, guys. It's really quite weird. But we'll just do something like this. It's the same issue though, huh? It's definitely the same issue. Parsers are so weird, man. IDE crashes. There we go. Okay, so SQL val.tree. Why does this happen? I don't understand. Okay, let's take a look again about how this thing gets generated. Oh, hey. Somehow that magically solved everything. Sort of. Sort of. It sort of solved everything. Not sure why this is happening. Is this generated code or no? Oh, it's not generated code. Okay, so we just have to... I guess I could just do a global search and replace. I don't know why I didn't do that. Column def, column, table def. See you later, M. Vargas. Thanks for stopping by, friend. Okay, so maybe this will help matters a bit. Seems like it does. Seems like it helps a bit. Okay, so the next stage of things that we need to basically deal with at this point is what? I don't know. This is a pain. Frankly, it's a huge pain. It's a massive, massive pain in the butt, frankly. Like, we have two options. We can either clone this guy and have another AST node for our aliased func expers, which seems really unnecessary because it's exactly the same except for this difference. Funcas is an alias clause that's set for table expressions that are function calls for rows from or set returning functions. It's separate from as because it can contain column types in the alias column definition. I don't know. It's not great. It's not great. It's really not great whatsoever. But I guess it's sort of whatever.
The data bank's too big. I have to narrow down the search. How are you going to do that? By guessing.
I mean, okay, here's another option that I think is a better option. Why don't we make the as a function alias clause instead of an alias clause? That'll break more stuff, but I think that it's for the best. I think it's for the best. Maybe.
Everybody knows that relational databases don't scale because they use joins. joins, and write to disk.
Right, Joy-Con. Thank you so much for the 6 months, friend. Really appreciate your support. Welcome back. Oh, it's a tier 2. Thank you for the tier 2 subscription for 6 months in a row. That is amazing. Thanks a lot, guy. Really appreciate it. So in this case, what we need to make is a column def list that contains a column def that has the name set to as alias. Easy. Dot name. Okay. So now we've just got to go back and do something else altogether, which is, you know what I'm realizing? You know what I'm realizing, you guys, is it's really that I should have just edited the alias clause thing and not done this function alias clause business. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that, I think. Column def list. Let's just delete this and rename it to alias clause. Okay, so now I think we're going to be in business. Now I think we're going to be in much better shape here. We can get rid of this altogether. Func alias clause, opt func alias clause. Okay, so this is going to be looking a little bit better, I think. And our alias clause is going to be returning something like this. And instead of doing calls as a nameless, this is the key. This is the key transformation right here. This is the key transformation right here, where this opt column list business, we have to transform this into a how am I going to do this so that it works out nicely? I think what I'll do is I think I'll make an opt I'll make a copy of this guy without the types or something. Okay. This is mildly janky, but I actually think that it's sort of fine. So this is going to be it actually has to be something like this. Tree.column_def name. And same here. Tree.column_def name. Okay. And this is going to be opt call def list no types. Opt call def list no types. And this is going to be a call def list. All right. How about this as a crazy concept, you guys? Is it janky? Maybe. Is it janky? Maybe. And then yeah. What's up, Durfred? Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. We're definitely getting there. So 9974. Name one. So this is actually just going to be name tree.name of $1. This is gonna be tree.name of $3. And I think this is gonna fix it. Maybe. This project has gotten way off the rails, unfortunately. But maybe it's fine. Maybe it's fine. Maybe. Okay, so then the next step is just to fix all of this other crap that's now probably completely busted. What's up, Robin? How's it going? And then this is gonna have to be .name. All right. Great. Okay, so we've done quite a bit of goodness here. Alter column table default unknown. Okay, I've definitely screwed up this diagrams thing, but I don't really know. Oh shoot, I see what I did wrong. Alter column table default needs to be replaced with alter column default. Alter column table default. Alter column default. G. Came back from evening walk. Cool. I'm pretty good. Thank you for asking. Working on a project that got a bit out of hand, but I think that is just fine. We're having fun. So I think the main thing is that now I think are ready to actually do the work at this point, maybe. So we know the columns, and now we know the types. So we can say b.synthesize column. Wow, it took us a long time to get here, but we got here eventually. And so this is going to be scope call name. Synthesize column needs to have name a type. Okay, so the name is going to be b.lastalias.calls of i.name. We should probably just say, should probably just pull this out like this. C.name, C.type. No, this needs to be resolved, unfortunately. So unfortunately, this needs to be resolved somehow, and I don't know where that usually happens, actually. So we'll need to find out how that's done. Hopefully it won't be too terribly annoying. For example, this one. Where is this one getting resolved? Is it in the type checker? That would be really annoying, but maybe it's fine. Maybe it's fine. I guess it's in the type checker. That would make sense. So let's take a look at our alias expr, which doesn't exist. because an alias expert is not a thing like that. So guess that makes sense. Let's take a look at where resolve type is called. Trying to remember where type checking is supposed to get kicked off from, and I don't really remember. And I suppose, imagine we did it. Imagine we did it right here, right? Presumably in this scalar thing, build scalar, you must do the type checkings in here somewhere as well. This actually, we already have a typed expert at this point though. So it can't be that. So t-expert, resolve and require type. I see. So we actually have enough information to do all this stuff. So I think we can just do it right in the opt builder. So I think what that means is we can say something like b dot, we have a semi-context, so we can say tree dot resolve type. We can say context. No, we don't have, we have to say b dot context. Our resolvable type reference is going to be our c.type. Our resolver is going to be our b.semicontext.type resolver. Okay, that wasn't so complicated. So type error is equal to this. If error is not equal to nil, panic error. Then we have our type that we can pass in. Okay, don't make mountains out of molehills. That is the point. This is very good to see here. And then actually we're done. So we've synthesized all this crap. It's absolutely insane. We don't need this, I suppose. And then at that point, now that we've done this, we're synthesizing these columns, and then what's the state at this point? This is like crazy stuff. We've done some. I'm curious what would happen at this point. Well, I guess we haven't quite. We're not ready for this just yet. Actually, we're not ready for this just yet. We're not ready for this just yet, but we're kind of close. Actually, what would happen if we just did make build at this point? Can we compile, or do we have other problems? Because the next thing to do is that we need to like pass in this information to the function itself, which is odd. But that's the next thing that we have to do for sure. Finish build generator function. I mean, I think we could actually pass it in here, right? We could say something like f dot resolved overload. No, we don't have enough information yet. We need to when we end up calling this thing, that's the key moment. Which I guess is over here. No, this is some kind of... This is actually even more complicated. I was thinking of this, I guess. I think the key is that when we run this generator, we need to have passed in enough information for it to know that it needs to use the alias. So how is it possible that it would be able to do that, right? That's nuts, actually. And I'm not sure it's gonna have enough, because wouldn't we also need to pass in the as information right here? Now that we've gotten the optimizer to understand this stuff. Thanks a lot, Sora. Have a great food. See you later. It's gonna be tricky. We would have to make some kind of closure that gets modified, I think is the thing, right? Like imagine we pass in a function, a factory that's itself modifiable later, right? And the way that it would do that is by inspecting the value of its own overload or something crazy like that. Or actually, maybe what it is you can, maybe these factories could get a new method on them. Maybe that's the way. Maybe that's the way to do it. Maybe these factories, well, they're just a function now. So ideally, we would just pass in another value. Maybe we should just do that. Seems like it would be pretty invasive, though. Pretty invasive to do that. So I'd rather not. Anyway, what happens if we run everything here? Does everything crash? Yeah, probably. Interface is parser Simpson union, not column def list. What's up? If it's a factory, why is it a function? Yeah, I don't know. Things are confusing in this world. Interface is a SQL sim union, not a column def list. What did I do wrong here? I was not expecting it to crash at that point, actually. Mitch's workshop. Thank you so much for the raid of 20 people. Welcome in everybody from Mitch's stream. How is it going? Hope you had a great stream. What were you doing? Were you doing workshop stuff? Everybody from Mitch's stream, I'm Jordan. I work for Cockroach Labs, which is a company that makes CockroachDB, the open source Go distributed SQL database. And mostly on the stream, we work on CockroachDB related stuff. Today, we've been enhancing the database to do a little bit more stuff with JSON. We support a lot of JSON stuff in CockroachDB, but we're missing a couple little functions. So we were kind of editing it to add a little bit more functionality there. When FP hits hard with closures and multiple func alias, I question my life choices. Yeah, I feel you there, man. I feel you there. But yeah, everybody from Mitch's, welcome in. Say hi if you're here. Say hello. Chat with us. We're friendly, I promise. We make a lot of bugs and crash things a lot. Okay, so that actually seemed to work fine. Have I looked at Cloudflare's durable object? I have looked at that. I actually know somebody who worked on that. An old coworker at Cockroach actually worked on durable objects. They seem really good. People seem to be fans. It seems like a good thing. I haven't really played with them much, but it seems pretty cool. Deeper thoughts? No, I don't have any deep thoughts, unfortunately. I just haven't, I haven't really played with it enough to have deep thoughts, unfortunately. How did I get into it? I applied in 2016. I've been at the company for a while. Okay, so what the heck is going on with this though? Do I like GraphQL? I think GraphQL is okay. I think GraphQL has a lot of promise. I haven't seen a really good implementation of it, I guess. I've mainly used it in the context of GitHub's GraphQL, which I don't feel like is that good, but I don't know. TreeQL. Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. I had a friend and coworker who wanted to make something called TreeSQL, which is like GraphQL, but simpler and made of SQL. Similar set of things, but I don't think he ever really finished it. There was an office before the pandemic, but it went away. It's gonna be back though, I think. Solves sets of problems and brings other sets of problems. Yeah, I would agree with that. Sparkle. Yeah, people like that sparkle stuff, right? So this is apparently broken for some reason. Why would that be the case, huh? Tens of us. Does gRPC have problems? gRPC definitely has some problems. It's hard to use gRPC properly, I would say. But it's also pretty good. So it's kind of, it's got some ups and downs, is the way I think about it. Okay, so what this is saying is that this guy is giving me back something that's different than what I'm expecting. I guess. Oh, I see. So this is actually working fine. So it's the opt call def list one that's having issues. So 3 call def list, 2 call def list, opt call def list. Ah, well, this is the problem. This needs to be not nil, but a tree.column def list of nil like this. I think this will maybe solve the problem. Okay, so that is good. Sort of. We're making progress, fixing little things by little things. So next up, what we've got to do is deal with, it's probably looking like a similar thing, honestly. It's probably looking like, we're assigning something to nil. Do we ever do this? I guess we should never be doing this, right? I guess we do it sometimes. But I shouldn't be doing it. One migration tool for database would use SQL, JSON, or YAML to write up and down migrations. I have a take, which is that migration tools, what you should do instead of writing up and down migrations, you should just write the whole schema out the way that you want it. And then the database should interpolate and figure out what are the changes it needs to make to get you from the current state to the state that you want. So that's my opinion on it. So I guess I would say use SQL. So this has got to be 2.callDef list. That's what I was missing, I think. Who's a fan of Yak? Not me. I'm not a Yak fan. I don't like shaving him. I don't like using them, and I don't like them. All right, so at least we're back to this state. And if we do this, this will work, except this shouldn't. This should throw an error, but We're not ready to do that. Handwritten parsers are great when you can use them realistically. I think in the case of a SQL database, it's going to be hard to write a handwritten parser for SQL. SQL is like a freaking mess to parse. It requires all this backtracking and all sorts of terrible crap. So I wouldn't really want anybody to have to write a handwritten SQL parser probably. I do think that language design has come a long way, and like people write languages that are easier to parse now, but SQL definitely not one of those languages. So XML with Liquibase. So yeah, maybe. Construct a private func def that reserved to resolve function overload. Maybe the key is that I've actually got to insert it into this guy. Sparkle is LL1. Where do we actually, yeah, here it is. In project set funcs, right? No, this isn't right. Bias towards SQL and YAML. That sounds, what would you do with the YAML? Where are my expers here? It's a render node, right? Render node. So this guy's got me these render expressions. Now we have to populate these. We do that over here. We're using build scaler, and build scaler takes an opt scaler exper, which is what we have, and then it constructs it, and presumably, I don't know, I'm kind of confused. Build typed exper, build function. So this is where we could be threading things all the way through. All the way through. The YAML is there so you have something to hate. I have Norway idea. You ever want to use something like Vim or Emacs instead of JetBrains? They seem so heavy and slow. Well, I mean, I'm a diehard Vimmer. I've contributed patches to Vim, so I'm a big fan of Vim. But you can't really work on such a big project such as CockroachDB without needing some extra support, at least in my experience. You can do it with Vim, but it's, to be honest, it's just slow. Like the language server stuff is coming along, you know, Go Please is coming along, but it's using one of the IDEs is actually a lot better when you have a big project. There's a lot of things that it gets you. Find usages is like instantly fast. You can do refactorings, like renaming things. You can add parameters to things and have it edit all the function calls to all the bots that you edited and stuff like that. There's really a lot that it does that's more advanced than what Vim can do. I do think that eventually, over time, people will make LSP stuff as good as IDEs, but it's just nowhere near as good at the moment. I didn't know this until I started working at like big companies. You know, when I was in high school and college and stuff, I was like, why did anybody use IDEs? It seems disgusting. I love Vim. I've customized it to hell. It's so fast and good. But the truth is, when you start working on a big, complicated project, you kind of need you need a little something to help you. You'll just get lost. But yeah, I think it'd be great. I think one day they'll get there. Probably. Yeah, so I think the last little thing I'm confused about here. Eki? The last little thing I'm confused about here is, where do we assign this generator thing? Yeah, exactly. They've got the parallel. It's really good stuff what they've got going on, for sure. Yeah, like this, basically need to figure out where this stupid generator factory thing gets run. Oh, it's in the overload. Okay, it's in the overload. It's in the overload. We can't edit these overloads because the point is that they're static. So we need some state, and the state needs to be passed into the factory. Somehow, that's the way that we've got to do this stuff. The factory needs to get the state. The state gets done at optimization time. And so we, no matter what, 100% have to have something that lives like here-ish, right? This new typed function. I feel like the cleanest thing would be to change the generator factory function thing to take in this information that I need to give it. Otherwise, it's really just going to be an awful, awful mess. Which maybe isn't so bad. Maybe it's not so bad to do that. I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to take a pause on this though, you guys. I'm a little late to dinner, to be honest. I'm a little late to dinner. I told some people I was gonna have dinner with them, and I've got to go do that. I'm bummed because I thought this would be easier than it was. So let me just make a quick commit here. So SQL, work in progress. SQL, whatever. We'll just SQL, add support for record returning SRFs. This commit, I'll just make it a work in progress. Let's face it, it's definitely a work in progress. This commit adds support for set returning functions that return record types. Record types in Postgres, I guess we have to say functions that return record types in Postgres must be aliased to a, it's kind of like a table alias to a name with types. What is it? It's a named and typed tuple, like as t, a int, b int, to be usable. As a result, this PR, this commit, needed to adds parser support for this form of alias with types. Pushes the alias information for an aliased expression down the optimizer's call stack so that the aliased expression can access the alias information. Previously, the aliased expression was blind to any aliases that were applied to it. And the last bit is teaches the generator function factories to get the alias information plumbed in as well. This part still a work in progress. No release note for now. Okay. I don't know why this is taking forever. That's okay. I think that'll basically do it for us, you guys, though. But thanks so much for hanging out. We're going to go ahead and find somebody to raid, as we like to do. It's good hanging out, you guys. It was quite good hanging out. A good stream. A good stream. We didn't get quite as far as we expected, but, you know, we learned a lot. And we had some fun. We learned a lot and we had some fun, which is always a good result, I think. Software and game development, the new Twitch category. Always so exciting that there's a new category. So what do we got? Serverless functions, Biopunk game dev.
17. So it is moving us way.
Who would be good to raid today, huh? Oh, this person's banning Twitch bots, I think. Okay, we're gonna have to raid this person. Are they? Yeah, let's go ahead and raid this person. So this person looks like they're working on banning these stupid bots that keep raiding everybody. So I like that. Raid. All right, so say hello, say thank you to this person, because it looks like hopefully maybe they will be banning all these irritating bots that keep following everybody. All right, you guys, it's been really fun. Have a great weekend. I hope you have a good one, and I'll see you all next Friday. Bye-bye.